My name is Michael LaRose. I'm one of the directors of New Beacon Books. And we're very happy to have Yvonne here this evening. Yvonne is very familiar with New Beacon Books. She could tell you that story. She's very familiar with this area because she grew up in this area. She will explain her journey and sojourn to you as she speaks. But she will also read some of her poems that are important to her and explain the background to them. She is a poet, a novelist, and a theatre director. And that is quite an accomplishment in one person. I'd like to now introduce you to, please welcome Yvonne Weeks.
All right, so I'm on fashion, British. You want me to stand up? Oh, I took off my shoes, even though I feel a little cold, but it's gonna get warmer. I'm Mons Fashion born. No, Mons Fashion, British born. I went to school at Hornsey School for Girls. See my Hornsey School for Girls girl here from ever since. I also, from day one, and I also taught at St. David and St. Catherine in 1980 and 82. Oh my gosh, and she found me. It's just amazing. It's amazing to see Dorothea. I just love her so much. And I just love her so much. It's so amazing to see her. I don't want to see Anthony Joseph in the front seat. I met him. I think I met you. I met him this year, and I fell in love with all of his poetry. And then I thought, I'm never going to write another poem again after reading his work. I'm grateful to have Michael Macmillan as well. I acted in On Duty that he wrote. Oh my God, that's so amazing. So the linkages are bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And of course, I have my Aunt Irene. When I used to party in this area, when we had no bus fare to get home, a group of us, like 5 of us, all for months, would end up sleeping in one bed in her house, and I'm back in her house in my latter years. So I think that's enough, and I'm just grateful to see the Mons Fashions in the house. So I think the best thing to do is for me to start my story with the last thing I wrote. And I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to share what brought me from England to Montserrat, to Gibraltar, to England, to Montserrat, to England, to Montserrat, to Barbados. That's my journey. That's my journey. So I'm going to just read this piece for you. It's brand new-ish. Certain people have looked at it. I'm not going to call their names, but I wish they weren't sitting in the front. Stones. My life is a series of prayers and stones, burdens and stories and stone victories, laughters, stones, exploding waterfalls broken into stones, sunken mountains, scattering stones in dark waters, carrying buried memories and city stones, mother, father, sister, cousins, ancestors crossing murky waters, some into slave ships, tongues heavy like stone. My father followed my mother, Catherine, to England. No gold, just stone. She comes slaving in factories, no gold, just same lime blistered fingers swelling in cotton factories like fields, some clearing of stone till their bodies turn to stone self, to rock stone. Mind turned to rock stone, hearts turned to rock stone, life turned to grey stone in these hackney blistering fog. chimneys filling up my parents' lungs. My siblings and I, brown and black babies, near wire meshes, fisted, craved peace, but feared being torn into pieces in playgrounds, white nurseries and Atlantic seas, feet prancing on plantation fields. This time, these stories and stones smashing my prayers and my memories onto rock stone, black sand, grey cities, hateful priests, sisters' treacheries, coral rock, stone men, Satan smashing my dreams. But temptation sweet like Bayesian dumplings, lovers whose love are more like stones than scrambled eggs, and hurricanes hit like stones, wintry hail, cane fires, death and suicides of our babies with no tomorrows. All that is left, clocks standing still, brittle bones, cemeteries, secrets, cold chalices, misty memories, lost letters. And as my mama, Honey Fox, might say, who the rock stone really cares so long as the sun rise and fall, that you do not have enough grips and suitcases, valises, handbags, and boxes to hold all your prayers and stones. Thank you. So I was not a writer, never planned to be a writer, had no intention of being a writer. I did drama school, I did a degree in English and drama, and I ran theatre, and this is what was happening to me. You know, I wrote a couple of things once. When we were teaching in the early days, I don't know if it's like that now, you had an advisor, and the advisor would come in and observe you, even when you had your degree. He would watch you and make notes. And once I was teaching my students some poetry, a third form class at St. David and St. Catherine, and the advisor said, English teachers are the only people who ask their students to do things that they themselves cannot do, which is writing poetry. He said, when they're writing, you should write also. So I started to write, and he was a very encouraging advisor, and he said, you must send your poems to, I can't remember the name of the person. And there was no, there's no email and so in those days. You handwrite them and put them in a. Anyway, I got some really good feedback. And those poems are in Charting the Journey by Sheba Feminist Publishers. I'm trying to remember the editors now. I'm so sorry, I can't remember who the editors are. It was 1988. And after that, I never write a line again. Never. After I left the UK. But then I went to Montserrat, and Montserrat has been hit terribly, terribly, terribly hit by all kind of things. 3 hurricanes in the space of like 5 years or something, and a volcano. So I want to share this book with you. It's edited by myself and someone, Wendy McMahon from the University of East Anglia, and it took us 2 years to compile. It's 51 writers from 19 countries, and it's a gift sponsored fully by can't remember the name. Sorry, I'm so nervous now. But the point is that we gave the book away to countries Antigua, Montserrat, St. Vincent, Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Jamaica. Guyana got theirs more recently, and I may have missed BVI. And so it was a gift. And so the reprint now is, we're selling the book now for our research. It's a great book. Oh, Nicole! Me no recognize you. Yeah. So it basically, yeah, thank you. So it basically covers, it has some very experienced writers, it has less experienced writers, it has published writers, non-published, and writers from all of those countries. And we gave it to them as a gift. It took about 2 years because I wrote all of the questions to go with the poems and the prose. And we also worked with a volcanologist as well, who had worked in Montserrat and who had also worked in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we've experienced this this horrible trauma. So I wanted to share this particular poem, which was an afterthought in a way, because the publisher, which is the House in the Hesse, based in St. Martin, said, "Oh, there's a blank page, so we need a poem." So I kept calling people and said, "Can I get a poem? Can I get a poem?" In the end, I had to write a poem because he was like, "We can't publish the book because there's these blank pages." So we write one poem. Since I was also the editor, right? And it's called "Remembering Hugo." Um, so all day she notes the weight of the sun, dogs crouching at doors, shirtless men hammering, fat babies sleeping, through plywood sawing, through squeals and innocent screams of village children. The incessant mooing of cows reverberates through chicken coops and cocks crow like they know the dream day is coming to an end. Women hummed soft tunes, packing corned beef, sardines, and eclipse. All along, some disbelieving villagers, fooled by the quiet of the day, clouds ascending, sat in the cool, in the stillness, sipping Heineken with fried chicken wings, ignoring the butterflies swarming around, dismissing too, stammering voices on the radio announcing the early September hurricane. Into the haze of the afternoon, little girls rested between sticky thighs while mothers greased patterns for the new world of school. Then night falls. She, the mother, hears the trees breathe. The rising evil of the wind prevents sleep, while why the moon watching her and her child so? In the darkness and in her fear, she hears the wind part the red galvanized roof. Tears drip while swelling winds like mallets grind everything down and away. The sky over her bed moves her to a closed cupboard. 7 family members already packed in there. She crouches with child in arms. Fear empties her stomach onto the floor. The rain like needles fall onto her neck. Drip, 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 drip. She keeps her eyes shut. Winds shatter furniture as Hugo passes. Morning comes. Crickets too. Light reveals everything skin out in the yard. Corned beef, sardines, and eclipse lie next to the shrinking dogs, cows, chickens. Traumatized trees wrap around each other and houses, their naked roots exposed. The eye goes and will not come back. All is broken. The bones of birds clothe the earth. She notes the staggering house, escapes to sleep in car, untouched yet, drowning in leaves. What comfort is the sun, now light, if leaves lay too wet to wrap her child tight? So I'm cheating kind of because I feel like because I wasn't supposed to be a writer, that's and I feel like once someone told me I wasn't a writer, then I determined to be a writer, and I was going to craft and I was going to recraft and craft and confuse people and send my work to them and say I want comments, give me the comments, and I'm not going to publish this until I get good comments, even if the comments are the worst comments ever. Even if I write, so I was really very intentional. I gotta go from this point to this point. So volcano is like, so maybe you might think of me as a trauma writer, and in some ways I think I am, because it was trauma that really pushed me to to really begin to think about writing in the same way that I thought about drama and theatre. So in drama and theatre, I felt like I was good at what I was doing, but writing is really outside of my comfort zone. So I left Montserrat in 1996. It seems like you want me to say, right? Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. And then I went to Barbados for a year. So I'm there 28 years later, okay? But I did go only for a year. But I got offered a good job as a head of drama at a college. And I happened to meet Kamal Brathwaite. He was reading from his dear Mexican diary, which is about his wife. And it was at Queen's Park Theatre, and I started to bawl. I may cry. And he's reading, and I'm crying. And one of my students, who was quite a mature woman, said to me, "Do you want to meet Kamal?" So I met him, and then he said he wanted to take me out for lunch. We met for lunch. And he said, "So are you writing?" And I'm like, "No." And he said, "Are you journaling?" And I said, "No, I'm not." And he said, "You need to journal this. You know, how does it feel to be living in exile?" Years later, I understood what he meant by exile. At the time, I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just in Barbados, about months down the road." Anyway, so he really did encourage me to write, and I did start journaling, and I would write a little bit and put it down, and when I had my depressive moments, I would write again, and when the volcano did stuff, I would be distraught and write again, and when people moved more, I would write again, until I had felt I had written all of my trauma out. And then he said, "So you have a book?" And I didn't have a book. So he's like, "What do you mean you don't have a book?" Because this was like 3 years now. And he's like, "You're supposed to write a book, man. You got to write a book." So several, a couple of years passed, and I did start to restructure and reform and do all of that. And I happened to give Earl Lovelace a ride from his hotel to the university to watch a play, King Jaja. He said, "What are you doing?" And I tell him, "I'm trying to write." So he said, "Read it to me." So I invited him to, and he said, Who knows Earl Lovelace? But the mountain could be a character, he said to me. The mountain wasn't a character, the mountain was just a mountain. And he made me rewrite my first chapter. And from the time he simply said, "But the mountain is the main character in the memoir," I actually thought, well, I can write. So I started to restructure my journal into what this is. So I was telling a friend of mine, I write this so long ago, and if I do readings, people will buy this and they won't buy the newer work. The newer work is much better. I've worked my craft. My craft is better now. This is not, this is not, I want you to read the new work. The new work is where I've really put my soul. And whereas this one, it was just writing. It was just like, I didn't think about it. I thought about my story and how my story would resonate with other people. And so I'm going to read a couple of things from here. And believe it or not, it was published in 2006 by People Tree Press. And I just got an offer for it to be translated into Spanish by a Spanish publishing house. And me just, yeah. Right. So, and he's having problems translating liming. And a couple of words he's having problems with. He's having problems translating the mountain, the evergreen tree, because I've made them feminine, and in Spanish they're masculine. So we're just having some exchanges right now. So I think this resonates with most people. Volcano. In all the years growing up and living on the island of Montserrat, I never once remember thinking about her. I don't remember what she looked like. I don't even remember noticing her. She was simply there. I only knew that she came into my consciousness when she first blew that hot July in 1995. This then is the beginning of time, but not so for the villagers who live in the south and the east. For years, they live and work on her. They recognize her every curve and bend. They walk through her lush crevices and fertile gullies. They smell her dark fragrances. They cross her deep ravines to plant their food and tie their animals. They recall her secrets as told to them by their grandparents. One day they look up and they know something is wrong. They know even before the scientists who come to explore and examine her. They feel her intermittent shaking that whole year. They hear her loud rumbling and her persistent cries. These sounds are new to them. When one afternoon she finally coughs up her belly with hot steam and deadly gases, it is no surprise to them. When I first hear the news about the volcano, I am not at home, I'm in Trinidad. And the information floats right over me. I try to imagine what is actually happening, or even what mountain they're talking about. Naturally, I'm anxious to return home. Montserrat is in the news, and I want to be there. On the flight home, I think about home. Strange word. Actually, I was born in a cold, wintry London. And the first time I heard the word Montserrat is when my parents decided to return home. 1960, by the book. I go to school and tell my white English teacher that I'm leaving to go to Montserrat. In front of a sea of white children, she says, there is no such place. And triumphantly brings out a globe to prove it. And in the midst of laughter and the tears welling in my throat, I see indeed there is no such place. Anyway, despite this teacher, my family and I arrive in Montserrat, where the sun rises above breathtaking mountains. I know a lot of people have never heard of Montserrat. Once I saw a tourist wearing a t-shirt in Montserrat that said, "Where the hell is Montserrat?" I even think about writing a book called Where the Hell is Montserrat? But then I figure since so few people have heard of Montserrat, why would they even look at a book with that title? So you have to know something about this place that I call home. Montserrat has always been the world's best kept secret. At one point in our history, George Martin discovers her. We're always being discovered and then forgotten. He builds a recording studio, a studio, and many famous artists come to record their music, like Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire and Sting and so on. But nobody notices them. They all bring their bodyguards and they promptly send them back. In Montserrat, I can leave my house open and come back to find everything just as I left it. Montserrat is what you might call a slow, meandering island where everybody limes and everyone is related, like a royal family. Before the volcano, Montserrat is just a tiny island, 39.6 square miles, which is run by, and still is run by, a white British governor. It has a population so small that it's actually the only island in the Caribbean that has a population growth below zero. It's worse than that now. I read that somewhere. Its other claim to fame is that it has the smallest museum in the world. I read that somewhere too. Now, if you ask me why I say Montserrat is 39.6 square miles, the truth is I'm not really sure how big she is. When I went to school, I learned that Montserrat, you learn it too, is a tiny island completely surrounded by sea and situated in the archipelago called the Caribbean, with Guadeloupe to the southeast and Antigua to the northeast. It is only 32 square miles and has 3 mountain ranges. Me wrong? I learned this parrot fashion, so it's indelibly marked in my brain. Later, someone starts saying 39.6. You cannot forget the 0.6 because it makes us bigger than Nevis. Hold on. I think. So I guess Montserrat just grew like a child does in the summer, except that nobody notices because The child has been around you all the time, but your relatives from overseas do. You only realize because his school pants are too short when he tries them on. At any rate, since this volcano, Montserrat has definitely grown. So I spent 6 years in this place that doesn't exist and then returned to England in the summer of 73 in order to get a good British education. My father's words and my mother's notion. Not a single girl I meet at school or anyone at university has ever heard of Montserrat. In fact, the first night I spent in the hall of a teacher's training college in Kent, I'm busy unpacking when a white student says, knocks on my door, "Where do you come from?" "London," I tell her. She seems friendly. "No, I mean, where do you really come from?" She says the word really with her bright red head of hair tilted. She seems to me like a cocker spaniel. So I tell her, "Montserrat." "Oh," she responds, "is that where they swing from tree to trees like monkeys?" Honestly, I do not reply. For me, Montserrat, with its black sands glittering as if diamonds were embedded in them, brilliant waters and mountains, is home. It will always be home. England, then, is just a blur. And really, once back home in 1987, there is no place on earth I want to be. So I'll just skip all that England stuff, the English memories, and we can refer to them as the dry period. So, so, so after some, so after the first year that the volcano was erupting, and it was just erupting and erupting and erupting, I made a decision that I would go to Barbados to study for 1 year. And so I'm gonna just skip about a bit and just talk a little bit about. So some of my relatives were living in Montserrat at that time, although most of them are living here still. So, but my maternal grandmother was living in Montserrat, and so we're going to skip to like the middle of the book, sort of some part of it, just to talk about that experience. My son would have been 11 at that time. Do you mind if I sit, or is that just for a little bit? Um, my son would have been 11 at that time, and everybody, including his dad, who's in the audience, wanted us to come back to the UK, and I was like, not happening. Um, so this is the day when we started to send our older relatives away because it was going to be just too much. The hospital was in a school. The town was already covered in ash. Um, England was offering people to come to here, not an option for me. And so this is the day when my grandmother is leaving Montserrat. So I'm going to continue reading from there. So as my son gives his great grandmother a farewell hug and they leave, my grandmother in a wheelchair, all my grandmother's words seem to turn in the wheels of the chair and echo in my head. At that point where they go through the door of departure, I remember shelling peas with her on her steps. I remember the piece of pumpkin and the breadfruit and the green bananas that she saved for me in case me come out. I remember all the meals she made me carry to dark women in faded flowered dresses who had no teeth. I remember the walking stick she hit me with one day. I remember how she called me at 4 a.m. to listen to some radio program about spiritual healing. I remember the stories she told me about her papa and her mama, about the old house where she was born, and Aunt Fanny, her older sister, now dead, and the prayers she taught my son, and all her childhood stories in which she was forced to work like a mule. How when my mother was born, she was a beautiful golden baby, and how she later turned out to be lazy and not like to do any work. I remember the story she told me about why everyone called her honey, because she's sweet like honey. I remember when I tried to plait her hair, the one and only time I ever tried to do it, and she told me how my hand too hard. I I remember how she showed me how to pick the right aniseed and fever grass bush to make tea. Showed me how to crochet and to not hold the crochet needle and to hold the crochet needle properly so that I don't look like a monkey firing a gun. How she made me drive from town to the north to take her to church just so she could show everyone that her granddaughter had a new car, and how she would correct me every time I tried to speak dialect because he's a big school teacher now at the grammar school. You can't talk like that. And I remember how she told me that she can never reach heaven on account of Hitler, the name that she called her husband. And in that moment, with my grandmother going through and the wheels turning, I remember all of the stories that will purify my soul. And my son and I look up at the mountain. She's still there, disturbing the leaves, the trees, the flowers, the seed, the animals, everything. But she cannot take away those stories, no matter how hard she tries. And the plane lifts off. I commit myself to my grandmother's stories. These are the stories of another world. And the volcano would try to take that world away from me if she could. My whole day is full of those stories. I begin immediately to share them with my son, who comes to work with me every day. It's lunchtime, and we are driving home for lunch. We see a huge pyroclastic flow coming from the east, followed by a huge ash cloud. We have become so accustomed to seeing them that I stop the car at the Viewpoint Hotel, and I stand and begin to look at this pyroclastic flow in fascination. This was a mistake. In no time at all, the cloud is overhead. We jump in the car and reverse to drive in the opposite direction. I'm sure that I can outdrive the ash anyway, but I can't. It starts pounding down on the car. I quickly pull into a friend's driveway, pull Nathan out of the car, and I run into the house. We run straight into the bedroom at the back of the house. Suddenly there is darkness, like the end of the earth. Darkness, and the world is crashing. Even though there are 8 of us in this room, I feel like a total solitude. The world wails a loud lament. It crashes into my senses. The electricity goes off, more darkness. Radio Montserrat goes dead. The phone is dead. The children are screaming. Sweat is pouring off me. Thunder and lightning, the ash is seeping through everywhere. Patsy is desperately trying to close all the windows, but the mountain manages to pour her dark mud over us. The mountain cracks, crack, crash. She mocks, crack, crash. She scolds, crack, crash. She shrieks. I remain surprisingly still, except for the odd time when I reach out to make sure that I can feel everyone, especially Nathan. The darkness is such a total darkness that you cannot see even the eyes or teeth of anyone sitting right next to you. I don't know how long this lasts, but I hold my eyes firmly ahead. I cannot risk moving for fear that the mountain will get even angrier. And as the black clouds carry the sun away, I cannot tell if the light that peeps its way into the darkness, into the stillness, into the mud, is the light which will return my muddy island to its old time, or whether this is the beginning of a new time. And in this world of darkness, time is endless. The mud comes down. I cannot see where my yellow car is parked. More mud comes down. In this darkness, I see all my life's bricks being washed away. Later, much later, my son describes this experience as a supernatural darkness. A supernatural darkness, he says. I don't know where he got that from, and when I hear him say it, I'm astonished. Some limbs from trees are strewn across the road. Mud is everywhere. No one knows what has happened, but outside is covered in a black, thick sludge of mud. The volcano batters us. It's as if the world is no more than defecation. Everyone is terrified and shaken. There are no words from any of us, no words at least for an eternity. So I begin to think seriously and deeply about life, about fear, how it can motivate a person into action, about all the things I've not done with my life, the people I need to forgive, the people whose forgiveness I need, the people I owe letters, the people I love and whom I haven't properly told. And in that terrible blackness, that blackness of mortality, that blackness which clutches at me, I begin to think about Jesus. I know there's no point in panicking now. And as I descend lower into those thoughts of blackness, I hear, for unto us a child is born, he shall be called Jesus. He shall save his people from his sins. So not my will, but his will be done. But is it enough? Here in this darkness, is it enough? Now in this darkness, with this volcano pouring its ash and its mud down on us, is it enough? I need to take an emotional break. Any questions? So before I move on, I'm not going to read any more from Volcano if you don't mind. I gave, there are 20 secondary schools in Barbados, and I gave to 16 secondary schools. Oh, I'm so sorry. Barbados would be first. After all, I'm living there, right? Sorry, no. So I gave to Barbados, and then I actually went to different islands, Antigua, Montserrat, Seven. And I went to Grenada. Any thoughts? Yes.
When you spoke about initially not feeling like a writer, and then going on the journey to becoming. At what point did you get to a space where you felt, yes, I am a writer, and I'm really able to creatively share my thoughts, my words, my ideas?
I had to keep writing it. Like how you write lines when you get punished at school. I literally do that. I am a writer and I am good. I am a writer and I am good. I literally wrote that. I saw another writer do it. A Vincentian. Yeah, a Vincentian writer. And I said, I'm going to copy that. And that's what I started to do. But I also felt like I not so much that I needed validation, but in the same way that I would invite people to a technical rehearsal for theatre and a dress rehearsal, and I would ask for their input, ask them for critique. I felt that writing became my act of spiritual worship in a kind of way, and that I needed other writers. Um, and after Kamal passed, I didn't have that. And so I started reaching out to other people and saying, look, I used to have Kamal all the time. So for example, this book, Kamal gave me the title. I had a title called something like Fragments of Something. And he wrote back, what fragments are you talking about? So, and he made me, and I actually shared this. I was fortunate that he read this before he passed, and that he wrote me a really nice, almost love letter, linking Volcano to Nomad. So whereas Volcano deals with the trauma in a very immediate way, Nomad is many years later. It's reflective. It's my first serious attempt at writing poetry. It's more reflective. It's more about my desire to feel a sense of home. And I've chosen for Barbados to be my home. I'm quite happy in Barbados. So when you read reviews that were written 15 years ago, that's not how I feel about Barbados now. No, I read a review recently, and it was just not how I feel about Barbados now. I was obviously very broken, very devastated, and I also built a very small Montserrat community within Barbados, a very strong Montserrat community. It's about 20 of us, and we're all professionals in fact. And I'm the president for life of the association. I'm told that often. So I love Barbados. It is my home. And my grandchildren are Barbadian. You're glad to hear that? Clearly a Barbadian in the house. So what I did was, as I was writing the pressures of university to write academic writing, I started to explore issues about memory and identity and what is home and how do we define home? Is it just a geographical thing? Is it a spiritual thing? Or is it a kind of something intangible, or you make a choice? So I'm very comfortable in Barbados, right? I'm not sure if anybody here is into Barbados. No. Oh no, I meant in terms of seeing me in Barbados. So Nathan's dad has seen me in Barbados, and you can't tell I'm not Bayesian. I move as the Bayesian, of course. So what I started to do was to really to kind of deconstruct in a psychological way. What do I mean about identity? And I also began to acknowledge the role that my grandmother plays, my maternal grandmother plays in my own writing, in the way I place myself as a writer. But she has a really important influence on how I write. I'm not necessarily writing about her. And Kamal said it's time for you to do something else. So I started writing these. And I was just in the same way, believe it or not, Jeremy Pointing is the one who came to me and asked me if he could publish my manuscript. You know, it was weird. I never sent my manuscript to a publisher for nobody to read, because I was like, I'm a theater person. But and the same happened with House of the Hesse. They were like, you know, we've read you're a memorist. That's the word. How you go? Anyway, and so I said I wanted to figure out who I was in Barbados, and so I was share from Nomad, and Kamal said, he wrote me. I have hundreds of emails from Kamal, by the way, literally, and he said that volcano, that this is the love and lover of volcano. So that you know, yeah, I might be old, but a young writer. I think of myself as a young writer. Am I a young writer, Anthony? You don't think so? Whatever. Right. So this was the very first piece that I wrote from Nomad, and I sent it to and he said it was more of an exploration of who I was in the context of someone with that eruptive crisis behind me in some way. Although it always emerges again, you know. So this is called "This Land Is Mine." Okay. I who did fear sea, who did never see no sea, till almost 10 years, except on a black and white TV. I who did hate the sound of the Caribbean night, frightened for firefly and lizard and green monkey and mongoose that look like rat. I who bone shudder and skin run cold at the sight of an iguana, who can't walk on no black sand, no coral sand, no hard ground, who swept away from the volcano land to coral land, and who kneeled down and asked God for a little peace. Please remember one thing. This land is mine. No loss, no law, no lava, no lover can change that. People like to say, you're not rich. All the time. Like I care. So I started to write some things that would help me to place myself firmly in Barbados. So this is, but still always looking back sometimes. So this one is called Sometimes. Sometimes, and just for a few moments, I'm taken back through choking memories of ash, fire red, hot rock, shimmering gray, thunderous clouds. I'm running towards a black sea, and I wish, Mama, you didn't have to leave. I recall the spokes of your wheelchair, and you sitting like that black Buddha candle I had turned into my one piece of art. And remembering that was the last time you were to see the ruins of the monster. And you leave silently, and the plane was rising into an icicle sky, and the plane rising, and my shout loud goodbyes against its humming. If only I had written you a love song. I dream you suffered the cold in bitter silence, your body broken by the winter's blows. And as I find myself heading for a new land, I ask the singing angels to hold you close. And then suddenly I wake, splintered by tears, and find myself on a cold shore, and you, Mama, on your own death shore. This might appeal to the Bayesian in the audience. It's called After You Burn. Didn't realize that fleeing you would leave me broken, living in such open solitude, surrounded by coral waters, alien cane fields, strange cart roads, crossroads without memories, schools without ties or strings, and a rockatuck rhythms that Mama would not understand. And just one more from this. Again, as I said, my grandmother was very important. Kamal really liked this one. He made me drop a line and change the title. It's just called Barrel. You know how you used to get barrel? Everybody get barrel? Anybody here get a barrel? What was in the barrel? But there was a kind of smell in the barrel, not so? You never get a barrel? You're too young. So anyway, so I was getting confirmed, my brother and I, in Montserrat, and my grandmother sent a barrel. And so I remember that, you know. So for me, I remember that, and I wanted to write about it. So I would peep through the pale green louvers across the stony yard of shadowy croton leaves. The barrel arrived in a bright sunlight, often in the midst of thyme and cloves and stuffed turkeys and masqueraders by the gate, cracking whips for a few coins. No sign of frost or snow or stormy seas. The barrel was jewels, butterflies, filled with shiny, bright biros, satin hot pants, and lacy white confirmation dresses, sewn ginger wine, and red silky curtains. And in the barrel, too, was her smile, wrapped in brown paper, pear drops, and camphor. I have Barbados time, so what time is it? Right, you all want to hear more? Okay, so let me tell you how we got on. So I went back to my theatre roots, and I want to talk about this because this is a book. Zara Errol is one of the writers in it. She's from Antigua. Say hi, Zara. So in 2015, one of my theatre students came and said he was auditioning for an American drama school, but they wanted a Caribbean monologue. And he didn't want to do all the other ones. He was tired of it. He was taught this a million times. And so he was like, do I have any monologues? And I gave him a book, but it was African-American monologues, and he didn't want to use it. And he was like, man, Weeks, I want you to write a book. Let me tell you what I did, though, because writing is not a rush thing. I took 2 years of research, and I realized that I wanted to do historical monologues because history is a dying subject in the region. Nobody wants to do it at CSEC, which is the equivalent of GCSE. Nobody wants to do it at Cape, and the history department have like 4 students, undergrad, if you're lucky. It's very bad. Well, the arts is very bad. Humanity is dying, right? So I said, okay, I'm going to start doing the research. And what I did for 2 years, literally before I wrote anything, is I attended every single lecture at UWI that Professor Beckles did, Dr. Henderson Carter. I brought all the history books, and I identified some people that I was fascinated by. So Nanny Grigg from Barbados, Eugenia Charles from Dominique. I was just fascinated, and I just read and read, and I made lots of notes. And I said, I want to imagine what it would be like to play these characters on stage. So I started crafting out the monologues that I was really interested in, like Rachel Pringle, for example. Rachel Pringle was a mulatto woman. She's been painted a caricature in a very ugly, horrible way that has no resemblance to who she could have been. Her father was Scottish, her mother was black, and yet she's painted. The painting of her is just ridiculous. So I started doing the research, and as I started researching, I was like, yeah, I can imagine playing this character. And I started voicing these characters in my little phone, and I imagined being on stage and dressing up like them. And so now it's 2018. We write 2 monologues. And the young man comes back to me and says, oh, I'm not going to New York anymore. I'm going to St. Augustine campus. And I was like, you know what? I can't write this one. So I invited Zara from Antigua. I invited a Trinidadian writer, Simeon Ndu. I invited Lasana, who himself is a playwright, from the House in Nehesi. And I had 4 other Barbadian writers. And we got cracking in writing. And I got funding for it. It was never meant to be published. It was meant to be like my research, and then I was going to just give it away, because I like to give away things, to the Caribbean Examinations Council, which I did. And then Lasana called me and told me, oh, I could do that. Send him the manuscript. No, that's not right. So I said, but I've already given it to the CXC. And all they had to do is click on their website, register, download the book, and he'd take over. That's how it gets published. God is good. Not so? And so we've printed this book, and it's now being used in the schools that teach CSEC drama and Cape performing art, and out of print. So he now wants me to go back to the drawing board and write 2 more monologues and so on. So it's a really beautiful text. Then he said, oh, I had to have questions. I was finished, and he wanted questions as well. So it took another 8 months, because I had to do the research on. So, for example, you have Samuel Sharp. Then we had to get permission for the images. A lot of mercy. It was work. But so it's available on Caribbean Examination Council's website for free for teachers, and they are using it all the time, which is amazing. But it's my research that did that, right? So during the volcano crisis, I don't know if my girl Roseanne would remember. Remember I did that production that went from shelter to shelter to shelter to shelter. You was there, you weren't along before. You was there? Right, so I did a production with a group of actors. And what we did was we captured stories of the people who were from the East in particular, who had been displaced. And we met and we rehearsed in my house. And then we started at Corky Primary School, went to Salem Church. We went all the way to St. John's under a tent. 700 people sat in that tent. But every night, we would have a Q&A, and we would add some of what they were talking about, the way the police treat them at the, and the way they can't get in the house, and how people hide the soap, and people lock on the fridge. Remember them days? It was bad. It was real bad. So and then my uncle, who's since deceased, he's a Calypsonian. He wrote a song called Volcano Baby, because there was a lot of. So I didn't include this in the work, because I didn't even remember it. It just came back to me. Oh my God, we did this. So I'm going to share this. It's a performance piece which has now been turned into 3 kind of films. It was commissioned by the UN's International Organization of Migration. I just finished it, right? So it has the potential. I didn't see it as being nothing but stage. And then subsequently, Zara, Carla Springer's, one of her pieces has been turned into a film as well. I just saw it at the European Film Festival in Barbados. So even though I saw it as just stage work, there seems to be potential for it to be offered as film as well. So I'm going to read this one for you all. It's called Volcano Baby, right? And I don't have the song, but I'm going to try. Volcano baby, me no want no volcano baby. You know it? Volcano baby, me no want no volcano baby. Hey, you see me, I wash my clothes them? In this back pan, yeah? Well, mommy, let me tell you, this is it. And Roseanne's going to say I don't sound untouchable. I don't care.
Close.
I try.
Close.
I close?
Close.
Good, because she's real on fashion. Right. Oh, let me tell you, this is the third time you have to move from Kinsale, from the south to the island. If them say that the volcano will blow again, and all man, woman, and child got to move. And me said to myself, if you decide to say you got to move, you're gonna got to move. Because when me see them black things that fall out of the sky, me say, are we in a trouble? Lord of mercy, and put more back, I got to move. So, everybody from Harris's Kinsale trials, Emma's got in this year 10. Yes, Daddy. I will pack up like a sardine. The volcanologist said I'm have to make I will move because the volcano upon red alert. Lord. You know what I mean? Dangerous. That means everybody got to move. You hear what? I can't find my uniform. Me know me pack it away. But me find me shirt, me skirt, me socks, me shoes. But me no have no idea where the blouse them be. Actually, I think this is the sixth time I will move. So what you expect? Let me find this your blouse. Full of ash. It just, when me say to myself, I can't go to school this afternoon. It's about to scratch my skin. So me go wash it. And as me wash this uniform, me see the school, them a frolic. Yes, man. Because when the cats are where the mice will play, some of them a play with fire. Because my mother tell me, for sure, what sweet a go up mouth, I go sour in the rear. Not me and them. Not me and them. Them man here in this year can't fool me. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, you see that? I get brazen since the volcano. Oh, yes, sir. The parents, them a walk, and you know what the school them a do when them there walk? Them no care. Them little force right girl, them no care. Look one gone there, so, You see, they must take advantage of the fact that school, they split up now. School start at 1 p.m. for everyone in the 4th and the 6th form. So what do you think will happen between 8 and 4? Volcano, baby. That is what going to happen. Yes, sir. Me see some of them girls, them a bob and weave, man. Because volcano or not, life got to go on. Music till a blast up in a St. John's. You think volcano make man change? No, sir. And hairdo must be had. And what the man them a do? Check out the school girl them. The mountain a blow, and everybody a blow off steam. Because it's pure frustration about here. Me are not frustrated. I can't find the blouse. So me go watch this one here, hang it up on the line. Between them two trees here. And me go sit down under the tree and make sure me blouse no disappear after the line. Because then, me I get me book, sit down under the same tree and prepare for the CXC. Because if we not pass, volcano blow or not, my mother going to crack my ribs. And me really need 3 eyes. One for watch me blouse. One for study me books. And one for the school, girl them. But wait. You don't really need no 3rd eye, you know. Because God is me witness. Me I can see and still not see nothing. So, we might even make up a tune. Yes. We might even sing it at the Calypso show this year. Because the way the mountain are blow, no volcano baby are born this year. Anyway, we go watch and see. Volcano baby. Me no want no volcano baby. That one nice ring tune, no? Volcano baby. Me no want no volcano baby. Lord of mercy, help this your island. So the book has some historical ones, and it also has some contemporary stories, and it also had some childhood stories. Like it has this story about the sucker bobbies that Bayesians make. You know, it has lots of different. There are three themes: the childhood stories, then there's some contemporary stories, and then there are some historical stories. And I tried to look at making sure that there were enough monologues that the regional students, because remember it's a regional exam. So there's a really nice one on Viv Richards that I enjoyed writing. I wrote it from the point of view of my uncle who was in love with cricket and who thought that Vivian Richards could do no wrong and that he was a god. And I collected a lot of research material. So I took some liberties. In terms of it's a creative imagination in terms of the work, but for certain, you wouldn't see anything that was inaccurate in terms of, you know, for example, the cricket. When we beat South Africa after they said they were gonna, 1976 was an important year for me. I did my A levels in 1976. Arthur Ashe won Wimbledon, and a very ridiculous man thought they were going to beat us.
He said grovel.
Grovel, that's the word. So I found the article. And I say, yeah, I gonna deal with he. Right? So, and I think Zara, we got an Antigua to read it in Antigua. They were like, you wrote that? Because I managed to capture the male voice. I was really pleased because yeah. So that's, yeah. Any questions before we move on? Any questions?
As someone who's traveled throughout the Caribbean and Europe as well, what's your relationship to language, to what we call nation language? I mean, that last piece was in pure sort of nation language. You have various nation languages that you can go into. What's the relationship with that and standard English for you?
I code switch all the time. That's awkward for some people, especially as a performer, because they're not really quite sure who I am. But who I am is that so I didn't grow up with dialect. So that's the first thing. So I came up in a household that didn't speak dialect. My father didn't speak that, my mother didn't speak that. And then I went to Montserrat, and my first experience of dialect, let me get lashes, Anthony. So I went to, I got lashes. I went to St. Patrick's School. I remember Montserrat people, St. Patrick's School, it burned down. I was very happy. I was hurt. I got beaten for the first time in my life, because I said, me go downtown, me go market. But I didn't really understand that it was unacceptable. And the teacher called and said, what did you say? Of course, I repeated it because I'm from England. We're not afraid of teachers, right? So I said, me go downtown, me go market. And I was beaten. And from then, I realized that there was that even within my own family, they looked down on dialect. And my grandmother did. Yeah, my father did. My mother not so much, but my father definitely did. And so I deliberately and consciously decided I'm going to learn dialect. And so I used it, even in my English classes at St. David and St. Catherine, I would use it. And I don't feel that I feel there's a time and place for the language. And so, how can I write volcano baby standard? It doesn't make sense, right? But also, even within my own writing, I move from standard to dialect and standard to dialect because that's how I think. And my dialect is odd because I'm a Montflatian that don't really sound Montflatian, right? And have been influenced by British black dialect and now Bajan dialect. I can't get a role in Barbados plays because I don't sound Bajan. And they say that to me, and I'm like, but what do you mean? I've been here 28 years. I must sound Bajan. And when I go to Barbados, Montserrat, they think I sound Bajan. So it's what people hear, but what I hear is a language that shows I've moved around, and I use it. So I kind of don't. When I'm in Montserrat, I usually say, I'm a Caribbean person, so don't pin me down to Montserrat. And when I'm in Barbados, I say the same thing. Don't pin me down to Barbados, because I've worked also in all the islands as well. I've performed in the islands, performed in Trinidad and Grenada and St. Vincent and Dominica. I've performed with Alvin Bully and Earl Warner and Royal Gibbons. And so I've learned that I can move through the language and still be respectful of the language, not make errors. So for example, I read that to a young Montflatian when I'd written it, and she was like, "You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say that." So I wanted to respect and honor the way a Montflatian would say. And the same when I wrote the Bajan pieces, I had a long conversation with Henderson Carter, who's a history lecturer at UWI, and also with Jennifer Seeley, who works with Afro-Caribbean dance cultural form, about, is this the way? And the same with the Antiguan piece. I called Anthony Joseph and said, listen. And he was like, I can't say Jack. Jack, don't say it like that. There's a way in which you say it. Kadir is Bajan. A Montflatian would never say Kadir. So I actually got Alsop's dictionary when I was writing this as well. And I literally made sure that I honored the language, whether it was the Dominican voice of Virginia Charles, or whether it was Viv Richards' voice. And I, in a way, it would have been better if I could have dramaturged it. But as at the time, I was the chief examiner for CSEC, and I was also the panel chair of the Teachers Association. We've created these 2 examinations with no resources to teachers. And so I was really under pressure. I was going to lose schools. Schools were going to say, I'm not going to enter my students when there's no material. So what happens in the region is that we create these syllabi, and then the researchers don't produce the material because, so we teach drama and dance, stage management, but we're still relying on Dorothy Heathcote and Brian Slade and Brian Way, whatever, for their work, and we're not producing material. So in a kind of way, I'm trying to also fill the hole. And I was fortunate enough that because I had already been published, that a publisher said, can we work with you on this manuscript? I have the Alsop dictionary. I try to be respectful of the language. I try to be respectful of the language. And the same with all of the pieces I did. With the Jamaican pieces, I called my colleagues in Jamaica and said, these are the Jamaican pieces. You're linguists. Let me know how you feel. So it wasn't the drama work that was the problem. It was respecting the language, making sure the language was true, especially to the period. So there was one word that Lasana wrote back and said, you can't put that word. I'm like, why not? You say, oh, civil rights is a 60s word. So then I had to go back to think about how I could write about the whole idea of freedom without falling into these modern tropes which did not exist. So for me, it was definitely about a lot of research and respecting the language.
Kanal really got into the issue of Caribbean language in History of the Voice. And in New Beacon's early publications, one of them was the theory and practice of Creole grammar, theory and practice of Creole grammar. because we have to battle the difference between nation languages, the language we speak, and standard English. And once we know they're two different languages, we can move into different languages. Here in Britain, there was a strong movement around language and power. And so we had to recognize that the youths here speak London English, they speak standard English, they speak a form of Jamaican English, and they speak what their parents had. So what we have is a multilingual community. And once we recognize it as a language, we can then take it seriously.
So for me, I speak multiple languages. Yes.
I don't know if you've answered this question in a way. I was going to ask you, has any of your work been put into film or you've been approached to make films? Any within any of your work that you've done?
Well, no, that's what I was saying, that Volcano Baby is now a 3-part episode, like 6 minutes each. It was commissioned as a film, but it's as a training tool. It's been used as a training tool. It was actually about how environmental crisis impacts girls and women.
Yeah, but it's nothing commercial that can be accessed on.
No, how to answer that? I'm retired. That's part of the answer. I've done some film work because I've done a lot of research. Like, for example, I've done a lot of research on Newton's slave burial ground. You know, the Newton slave burial ground in Newton Christchurch. I've done significant work on that. So this is my MA student, and I did some work on that. But it's not my comfort zone. I want to be a writer.
Your podcast or anything like that, because to reach a wider market.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in markets. I'm genuinely not interested in markets. I'm interested in writing. And I think that, is that enough? I'm not interested in no.
No, but as a writer, to get your material out in a wider audience, I'm just saying.
That's somebody else's job. That's not my work. I'm not interested in that. First of all, I'm not writing for people.
Yeah, I understand.
Either.
I understand that.
No, I'm not. Sorry. I'm sharing it. I'm sharing my work, and to me, sharing is more than enough. Sorry. I'm sharing my work.
Just to piggyback off of that, and for the gentleman, can you remind me and share with them the series that you were doing? Because that is sharing your work as well as the work of other Caribbean writers. You don't remember? You had me as a guest. You had other Caribbean writers.
Oh.
It was a podcast.
Right. So let me I'm silly because Anthony Joseph was in Barbados and I forgot to interview him. That was a real stupid thing I did. And I mean, but we can do it online. So in terms of how I am sharing the work, there's a series that I have been producing for the University of the West Indies UBTV series, and I interview a number of, to ensure that we don't not have archival material of the important writers and artists and choreographers, interviewing people from across the region, and interview Zara from Antigua, just about the work that they're doing, and that is to be used as resources for people who are doing research. So I've interviewed Ron Gibbons from Trinidad, interviewed Kendall Hippolyte from St. Lucia, Francis Rice Peters from Grenada, to interview Hunter Ford and Eugene Williams. Not just writers and directors, choreographers, and so on. It's an hour-long program, and that is definitely in across the region. For me, that work is more important. It's not just about my writing. It's about how are we allowing the community in the Caribbean to know about the work of other Caribbean cultural practitioners, writers, theatre directors, and so on. So I've got a whole series on television that comes on. Yes.
Not quite sure how to formulate this question, so I'm going to have a stab at it. You said that some people refer to your writing as trauma writing, and so
Some people have it.
yeah, and so what I've been hearing sounds like a dance to me. That sometimes you dance towards this trauma, and sometimes you dance away from this trauma. And what I wanted to ask you about is this a conscious thing that you're doing, or are you just responding to what is coming in the moment?
It's both, because I love music. In my next life, I'm going to be a musician. I love music, and I've been trying to. I'm still working on how I can hear the music in the work. I'm still working on that. I don't know if I would ever use the term dance, but the thing is, I'm a performer. So I think my writing is influenced by the fact that I'm a performer. At least I don't want to call myself a performer. Let me tell you why I don't want to call myself a performer. Because I don't want to go on stage ever again. Because I can't learn lines. So the last play that I did was in 2019 or 20. And the director was a beautiful director. She's since passed away. And I was like, okay, somebody needs to tell me when to come on stage. Not because I don't enjoy performing, but because I don't enjoy learning lines anymore. I hate it. So from that point of view, I approach my writing always remembering that. So I think that I don't like the idea of poetry that just is meant to be read, that is meant to be read out loud or shared or performed or whatever. So that's how I approach the writing. I always imagine somebody, not necessarily myself, but taking the work and doing things with it. And that's why I actually do a lot of Kamal's work on stage. A lot of Kamal's work. I work with a choreographer, and we do a lot of his work on stage. Because I just feel like it just, the body and the words, somehow that is the dance. So I direct a lot of his work. But I hope my work will get there.
So following on from that question, I would say a poem, for instance, like Immeasurable, which is it Immeasurable in Nomad? It's a very beautiful, it's short.
Did I read it?
It's a love poem. I don't know. No, I know you should read it this evening, but I mean, when people buy the book, they will, or if people have the book. And I think that's what it's called, Immeasurable. I read it yesterday.
Oh, wow.
And
You're
it's
so...
really very, and that to me, it just feels like a kind of, as I was reading it, I was really short, but I was feeling, this is something that you just really kind of woke up one day or whatever, or in the middle of the day or something, and really just felt, and just, there's nothing, there's no, whatever, however people have described your work or whatever. This one was just a very,
Thank
people will
you.
discover it.
People will discover it. So I think though that I want to read another couple of poems, and then we can do Q&A. Right. So
Oh, is it finished?
yeah. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm from Corkhill. I was born in Corkhill, St. John's, where you were just talking about, and I was listening to you talking about language, and I was thinking, I heard you say something.
But I used to live in Corkhill. Hello.
Yeah, I live in Corkhill. I was born in Corkhill. I was born in Peaceful Cottage, Corkhill. Yeah, and you were talking about, you read a poem and you were saying something about daddy, daddy, when I said daddy, da-da-da-da-da, and that daddy-o, and at the end you said lard. And I thought to myself, well, we said daddy got a lard, and it's a really bad one.
I know.
When you crack daddy got a lard.
Yes, it's bad.
It's bad, and I was thinking, they were more likely to actually crack that one, possibly. But then again, when you talk about language, how specific can you be? Because you say like someone from from Montserrat might know this or not, but if you're from Cork Hill, St. John's,
Definitely.
you know his daddy got a lot.
You know that for
You
sure.
know that
The
for
whole
sure.
island.
Yeah,
knows
but
that.
it's 2 square miles. It's only about 2 square miles where people
When
are
you
people
want to be
doing it.
softer, you don't add the rest to it. So you say, Daddy-o.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you want to be, then you carry through.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And actually, it didn't need the God a lot.
Yes,
The
yeah.
poem didn't need that.
No,
Another.
I'm just saying that. That's
Yes,
how
but that's how it works. I know
yeah,
that.
it works.
I know that's how it works.
Yeah.
So for me, the autobiographical is where I'm at this point, and I am working on a new manuscript, and then I want to share a couple with that, and then we'll have to. You're surprised,
You look just like my
right?
sister-in-law.
35. What?
You look just like my
Well,
sister-in-law.
I'm not. So I'm just going to read these last few. This one is called Cobweb. And like I said, my grandmother is very, very important to me. And believe it or not, volcano did upset a few of my family members, like very bad. Felt I had aired my dirty linen. And in fact, the one line that offends many of them, unfortunately, is the line that says, I have grown accustomed to the love of strangers. And so, writing the autobiographical is a challenge for a small island community. I know there are some poems that I'm definitely not reading if I see all my sessions in the audience, because they will go back and pick up the phone and call my mother and father. So I wouldn't do that. And also, you got to be also sensitive. But this particular poem that I'm going to read is something that was triggered by something my grandmother taught me. And there's a challenge when you grow up with these kind of myths about life that some people would interpret as Orisha, some people would interpret as superstition, but I've never had a discomfort with both things. I've never had a discomfort with saying I am a Christian, but I've never, and also we believe that when people did, there's nothing wrong with laying them out on the table and putting food out. I don't have a problem with that. But of course, some of my family members do. So this poem is called Cobweb. I said that for the context of the other poems I'm going to read. Okay? Midday, hanging clothes, some jumbie find her, wafting jeweled memories, smelling of fried jackfish, weaving cobwebbed silk across her eyes, her nose, her lips, bringing ancient sadness to her heart. So, between the spider webs and clothesline, she stands cast in stone. Lets the jump pass. I don't know about you, but when a cobweb came across my face, my grandmother said, "Don't take it off." Yeah? Because the cobweb represents ancestral protection, ancestral covering, ancestral journey, and so I believe it, even while I take it. And that's a problem for many people. It's not a problem for me. I'm going to read this one and then one more. So I have been thinking about the fact that I lost a sister, 3 cousins in 1 year, in 6 months to breast cancer. And lost family members to tragic deaths as well. So this piece is called Pearls. I'll just read it and move back to Coiled into a comma, her punctuating silence brings no calm. Her eyes are sunken into her skull. Her child is sleeping with the clouds. Nothing, nothing, nothing breathes through the house. She withers and writhes, and voices disturbing her gasping memories. Snowy windows reflect a trail of teary pearls. Her howls explode and crack and break and burn. Flowers in a vase bring more bile to her stomach, flooded with emptiness. The air so foul from her madness and piling trash, no condolences can heal. Leave your pearls at her door. Lie quietly on her cold floor. Carry no red flowers. Offer no platitudes. Speak in hushed tones, while the screeching nuthatches fill her sacred darkness. Let your stillness be her prayer. And my very last poem. Called Wake. In the midnight silence, like a ghost, my mother covers the mirrors with white cloths, flecks of light peeping through cold fires, glowing among languages of mourning and murmuring men in the yard. Cutthroats of pig and goat and chickens, headless, fly up into a breadfruit tree. Women in somber head ties come into the yard, bodies peeping on the dead. Fireflies gather and release, back and forth. They pull tablecloths from cardboard boxes, peeling cassava and sweet potatoes on stone steps, chopping onions, garlic, sweet peppers, washing rice, chopping meats, big skinned and sliced. For the dead must eat, and the dead must be appeased. Little girl watches from a corner, her grandfather's body on the table. I see shuck shuck, ukulele, guitar. His dark clothes lay on a chair. Blue soap, enamel basin on floor, black shoes and fedora. Later, screaming, these women scrub her body with the blue soap in the yard of blood, meats and animal feces. Her uncles lift her body over the table. She peers through her fingers at her fearless siblings through candles. Her own vain rage leaves a stone in her throat. She closes her eyes, refusing to see the grandfather and his ghosts, while men drumming, chanting unrecognizable songs. Among the anguished breathing and the rocking, women's humming, the girl closes herself and what is yet to come. Thank you. So now we can have the official Q&A.
Want to develop any ideas? You want to discuss some of the poems and the things you've heard this evening? Rule.
What? Oh, well. Yeah, well, you know, I thought it was Ida Edwards.
Sorry?
You know Ida Edwards?
No, I don't.
She's another monstration writer. We had a talk here, and when I saw the note quickly, I thought, oh, it's Yvette Edwards. So I came down, and it was Yvonne. And it's been really great, because I never knew we had so much women writing in Montserrat, and I just think it's fantastic. I've had a really good time. And just say, if I was going to say anything, just how much I appreciate it, really. The poetry was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
The poetry was really wonderful.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions or comments, what I'd like to do now is, first of all, thank Yvonne for a masterful presentation, taking us through her life and her work. Please show appreciation for Yvonne Rees. There are a couple of things I have to do before we go. First of all, to present Yvonne with some flowers produced by one of her students. Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you. You've got to get a picture. You've got to get a picture.
Definitely. Right. The other thing I want to tell people is that Helise, one of our volunteers in the corner, will be coming around with a board so you can put your name on our mailing list. But please use capitals. My eyes ain't good anymore. Yeah?
Here.
But I'll get. Okay, good. I hope it worked because it looked like I heading down that way. The other thing I wanted to tell you, and I'll leave these out so people can see, is next weekend we're doing two events. One, we'll be out with our own Nicole here. Give them a little so they know who it is. In conversation with Pam Williams, who's just published the first novel. And that'll be next Thursday, 24th. The second thing is we'd have Saturday morning children's readings. And on the Saturday the 1st, we're having a children's reading with Sandra Agar. So, but
All the grown-ups are coming, I think.
So the problem with that is that you have to book, you have to send us an email, and we'll send you back a confirmation you can come in or you can't come in. So, and then it has to be you and the children. It can't be the children by themselves. We're not trained or got the security. Okay. So, once again, thank you for coming. It's much appreciated. Please give a warm applause for Yvonne Weeks.